you have to have boots on the ground. I'm a big believer in that, even in the asset management space. So I need to keep making content, keep finding good partners in locations where they can be the boots on the ground, source these land if we're going to develop, or if it's a property. I just have to know someone's in the area so we know we can manage the deal right if we're going to syndicate it or just buy it ourselves or whatever the case.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I'm your host, Yona Weiss. Always grateful to be here and excited to have Marc Kuhn on the show, all the way from North Dakota. Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome. It's a good thing. I
appreciate it, Yona. This is awesome. We're up in North Dakota doing things a little different up here. So I'm grateful to be on the show, man.
That's awesome. I'm really good to have you, and love for our listeners to get a little background, give a little background who you are, what you do before we jump in here.
Yeah. So you want to go through the whole story, or you want me to just give you a high level?
I'm not going to put any pressure on, but our last guest literally condensed her 37 career into 3 minutes. And she was able to do that so gracefully that I don't know if you're going to be able to top that, but
well, hey, I'll give it a shot. Okay. So the quick go around to me is basically I started out working next to Dad, and I have in a construction career and Mac Construction behind me. And basically I knew concrete construction. I did that all the way through high school, college. I started next to him when I was 6. So all the way up into like about 2010 is where Dad and I butt heads. And so I was at a crossroads though of where I bought my first house, and I actually went and worked a W-2 job for a little while and bought my first house. Then I had quit my job as soon as we closed on that house for some reason, and decided that I was going to go back to construction, or I really didn't have a plan, but I decided I'm going to try Mac Construction. It's just my initials. We were talking about that earlier. And you know what? I just kept with it. I didn't know if this was going to be long-term, short-term, what it was going to be. I just knew I had a lot of drive, that I wasn't working hourly anymore. I worked, the harder you work, the more you would make. That also was a problem as I grew in my career from 2010 to 2016. All I knew is what my dad taught me: work harder to make more money, harder to make more money. And that's suddenly in 2017, 16 area, I started breaking down. I just had anxiety. A lot of my family was, I had my wife and we were just having a kid. And then I knew my time. I couldn't spend 90 hours a week working concrete, So I just realized that like anxiety was eating me up. I wasn't sleeping, night sweats, panic attacks, like the whole thing. Like I was literally a mess. And so I started to get curious and be like, okay, this isn't sustainable. I'm going to have to figure out how to either leverage other people to like control the company, because if anything happened to me, like the company was gone. Like everything revolved around me. And I created in 2017, I realized I had to delegate, hire some people that were better than me, humble myself. And then I realized also, like, I think I was talking about real estate next to my phone, and of course, Grant Cardone pops up, and then he's like, you got to invest in what the super wealthy do. And I'm like, well, what's that? And, passive income and all these terms that you just never heard of as a concrete employee, or I should say a concrete owner. And anyway, I got really curious about that space, curious enough where I just wanted to consume everything: books, online courses. I was in his mentorship program, and just started learning the space. And I was like, wow. So then I took more steps to buy real estate and kind of went down that path, and then realized I could be a developer. I have this concrete company or construction company now that did general contracting as well. And I could build my own assets and hold them instead of just sell everything or, build for other people. Right. So that's what led me down the path, man, of real estate investing. And then all the way fast forward up today, we do about $25 million in annual revenue at the construction company. We have over 200 multifamily doors and over 100,000 square feet of luxury storage space.
Wow.
So that's kind of the short story of getting up to where I am now.
And has the anxiety dissipated? I mean, were you able to put people and hire the right people to run the construction company and kind of focus on what you're good at and what you enjoy doing?
Yeah. So, well, two things there. Multiple sources of income is like a real thing. Like I relied on one source. I think that's why the anxiety hit in. And I think any W-2 person out there could probably, reflect to that a lot and understand where I come from. And so I just knew I had to have multiple sources of income. And it's kind of nice when you're paid from a property. It's like, wow, that takes a little pressure off the construction company. And, obviously it compounds over time.
Yeah. One part of it was just, putting the right people in place to run the businesses and just alleviating the anxiety that came with working, as much as
Yeah. So I remind myself. So EOS is a system. Like I read a book by Gino Wickman. And of course, like I'm a reader, from 2017 to 2019, I bet you I read 100 books. And they say not to do that. But I was just like curious and consuming this stuff. I haven't really found podcasts yet. I didn't really find other things, but I was consuming all these books. Because of course you read other wealthy people and what they do, they're reading really good books. And, I think that's turning into podcasts nowadays, but I followed a guy, Gino Wickman. He did a system called EOS. My construction company's not ran just by me anymore. It's ran by like a board of leaders at the company. So, if I were to die today, the company would be fine, right? Like they go on without me. They just replace the visionary that I do for the company and just kind of tell us where we're going. And, the leadership board's like 6 of us. So we have about 50 employees within the construction company. So
awesome.
That's humbling, that it takes a lot of pressure off just you making decisions.
For sure. That's a huge paradigm shift, a change of direction entirely. And from what you were brought up with, and just like you said, the work ethic of work harder, you make more money, which is just essentially exchanging your time for money, which is what a lot of people refer to as like the golden handcuffs. But that's really when you're working for someone else. Here, you were running your own business, but didn't have the right, tools or even have the knowledge to implement the business, model of the EOS in the way that the successful entrepreneurs are running businesses and having the right people do it, knowing who's the right person to do what. Like you said, the visionary, that's someone entirely different, than the integrator, than all these other components that Wickman talks about there in that book and many other books. So guys, if you haven't checked out, Rocket Fuel and Traction and all the other books from Gino Wickman, they're just incredible. It's going to take you to new places once you go down that rabbit hole if you own a business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like, instantly you try to like, hey, can I do this by myself? Can I just implement EOS by myself? No, it's completely done differently when you hire a coach. Yeah, it has all the steps for you. You can buy the booklets and you don't need to hire an implementer, but I would say that was, bite the bullet. Some of those performance coaches, whether it's, health, your wealth, your companies, your businesses, I have a coach for every area. And it seems to just, you can skip time a little bit and save so much time and actually builds new time. You can get a lot more things done in a shorter amount of time with a great coach.
So well put.
So, yeah, that's just a big help for me through all this.
Awesome. And so you took this, construction company that you have, which was not only a general contractor, but now you're building your own properties. And that's a huge skill to have. You talk about a lot of people out there who are listening to this and a lot of our, common, general network who are in the syndication space don't have that skill set, or don't have that part, which brings a lot to the table, especially if you're doing, JV partnerships or doing other types of partnerships, which I don't know if you're doing, but that brings that huge skill set to the table. And even if you're able to run the show in a component of running a commercial real estate business that is oftentimes looked at as the most difficult part of, the construction management and dealing with third-party contractors, and having that in-house just to me seems like you're ahead of the game.
Yeah. So I know more contracting people. Of course, that's the space I'm in, right? Syndicators are probably your listeners. I'm guessing a lot of them. And, why in 2017, I got curious and then I had some success with it before, like pre-COVID. Well, then during COVID, I was like, hey, I want more people. Like I heard more about syndication. I'm like, I want to get more people invested in real estate. So why don't I try to do Mac Capital and let other people invest beside me? Because a lot of people were curious about it. Like, what are you doing? Like, how are you doing this? I said, it's not honestly complicated. I build really boring assets, Class B multifamily and storage, and I put money towards it. And you know what I mean? It creates a legacy wealth. So Mac Capital was like a passion project for me. I mean, that's what it was. And then it was just because other people were kind of asking me about it. And I was like, you know what? I should just provide the solution since I'm getting some demand from it. And then COVID hit, and then, the Wild West happened in the contracting space. Like, you thought you knew things about pricing until you hit that area. Like, so many questions like, well, why is it going up in price? And why, it was like, holy. So that was a challenging time to be a contractor. But yeah, I learned even a lot within that last few years. It challenged everything I knew about construction, but it's definitely a great skill. Most indicators that I talk to connect with nowadays, especially on podcasts, things like, I'm learning the construction side, which is different in every state. I'm in North Dakota. It's fairly friendly up here, but you got lien waivers and you got, different AIA agreements and some of these, hiring a sub. What's the expectation? What's the statement of work? A lot of people don't know. And that's why they end up getting change order to death,
Right. But it's even supply as well. I mean, procuring, different supplies has become more challenging.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. And it's better now, right? Like it's the best it's ever been. And obviously the longer we get from COVID, should level out. The interest rate, people are still building like crazy today, which is crazy to me at 7% interest rates. But, the demand is there. I think we were so down in housing that demand is still driving supply. And, even with 7% interest rates. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 12 months. I think we're at a pretty high threshold for interest rates where a lot of things don't pencil and cap rates are still not, to me, fully, they're still rising. So
yeah, they're not where they should be, that for sure.
No, no. Yeah. Yeah. I'm finally starting to see 7 to 7.5 caps in my local area, which is good. And I'm in the Midwest though, a little different if you're in the Sun Belt.
Well, I've never defined North Dakota as the Midwest, but I guess that is, right? I mean,
the Northern Midwest.
Midwest. You're like, you're on the Canadian border almost, it's like pretty different market there. And I'm not even familiar so much with the markets that you invest in. I mean, what's the population and, the job growth and stuff like that going on in those markets? I mean, are people moving there?
Yeah. So I'm in Grand Forks. We're near a big metro, Fargo, North Dakota, which some seen the movie, so they don't always know North Dakota. But you know what? Our population is increasing. And also is the investment up here. Like you got Kevin O'Leary kind of blowing up on the news, but even Brandon Turner, he's up here all the time buying stuff.
Interesting.
And it's because, and I think he just had a reel that said that, and it's just because it's an investment friendly state. We have a bank in this state that will take risks to stimulate North Dakota. So we're obviously an oil state, but we have a central bank in North Dakota that if you can get them to buy into the project, most of the local banks just sell the loan out, most of the loan out to them. If it's a $30 million project, BND might buy 29 million of it. And so when you got a bank stimulating economy all the time, and then you got really good job growth up here and a lot of agricultural fuel, we're usually in recessions is when North Dakota does best.
Interesting.
Because commodities are high, oil prices would be high. A little different this time around. I don't know if we're in a recession or not. Maybe I'll ask you that question. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not the right person to ask that question. But you've also, recently, and we got connected through LinkedIn, but you've taken to social media and grown like a pretty significant following over a relatively short period of time. And I'd love to dig into that because that's something that we're always interested in learning how to grow, how to expand, how to reach more people, get the message to a wider audience. So I'd love to hear from you some of the, best practices with that.
Yeah, so I gave this I'll call it smoke in 2022. I gave it, what I thought is everything I had. I realized though, I was recreating content, like brand new content all the time, which just led to burnout. Like you have to repurpose is usually the word that you hear, but it's so true. And good hook lines and good, things I hear you preaching in the background. It's like you learn things, but then now I took the video side of it as well really hard. But they both work hand in hand, like whether it's LinkedIn and writing and Twitter, because I know you're getting bigger on Twitter. That's my next challenge is Twitter. But I did the video, but I had to hire a coach. I just knew I was stuck. And suddenly I hired a coach in 2022, like December, and Ryan Pineda is my mentor there. And he's just pushed me. He's like, bro, I'm pushing 150 pieces of content every week. or sometimes 200. And it's like, wow, that's like reels and posts and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm doing 6, and then I got up to like 20 and I was burned out. Like all I do was creating content.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a team to help you. Obviously, you can leverage some VAs. I got a small 2-person team that helps me in my office too, that does some of my social media and helps me just repurpose. And we're videoing. We're doing things like this. Hopefully, we chop this up into some reels. You just
Absolutely.
learn the space. I think my success though is learning repurposing, hiring the right people to push you and show you the way. Because I was on the hard path in 2022, and I wasn't getting very far. But then when I paid the money to be the coach, have the coaches in end of 2022, and the results are speaking for. Now we're like globally over 20,000, which is pretty big deal for us, or 25,000. I don't remember what it's at. So we're doing pretty good. And there's a lot of opportunities that come from social media. It's incredible. Like you think, oh, you're an influencer, you're bragging, or, some of the people's fear why they don't do it because of judgment. Man, I've gotten the best deals. I've gotten the best employees. I've gotten the best, I'm spending about 10 grand a month doing social media in all the facets that I'm doing. But for that 120,000, I've already, I've landed apartment deals and I've landed partners on luxury storage. So it's like,
and investors probably also, I'm sure.
Well, right. Yeah. Investors. And so it's just like, it's a priceless thing. And you actually like where it gets fulfilling for me, and why like now I push to keep doing things like this, is because it helps a lot of people. But I never thought my story was interesting, like I didn't. I was like, I'm a concrete guy, like went to be a developer, and I own some really boring assets. But apparently people like that, and it's a good story. And
it's about how you tell the story though, more than anything else. How you tell a story is more important than the story itself in a lot of ways. Not to downgrade your story, but it's just the truth. I mean, you go out there and you're walking a development site and you're showing, here's something we're doing right now, or here's a challenge we had, or here's whatever. People relate to that and they keep showing up for more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not all of us were, I'm interested on everyone else's space, but like when in construction, there's some interesting things that go on. There's some really uninteresting things that go on, but you try to provide some content. But yeah, people like that. So I'm thankful that I am able to do it now, and it is able to help people, and I get to work with them. I get to network. I've met so many more people since just November. Like now I'm like, I probably have 100 new friends that I didn't have nationwide.
That's awesome.
And they're similar to me, right? Like you like people that are like yourself, big thinkers and visionaries and love real estate. Not everyone in my local North Dakota area loves that, but
Really? I'm shocked.
Yeah. I stick out a little bit here, so it's all right.
That's good. You're building a name for yourself in the community also, because, when people think North Dakota, they're thinking, Mac, they're thinking Marc Kuhn. I know that's really an amazing thing, because that's branding. And you've done a really good job at that. Obviously, like you said, with the help of coaches, with the help of, a team to help you post that content. Because, I'm always curious. You see people putting out tremendous amount of content. That there's a team behind it. No one person can actually put out that much content on their own and in so many different formats.
Yeah, you can. You will get to a point though where you'll be your own worst enemy. You're just blocked and you're not right. You don't feel good every day. You don't have systems in place. You're just trying to make more content. And that's what you have to hire the coaches for, and, really good mentors that show you those ways. So if you don't feel good for 2 days, or you're going to be in Cabo, then your posts still go out and, things are still happening. So I don't know. Those were really big things that can help anybody. 10 grand a month may seem like a lot, but I've probably made a couple million from that 10 grand a month, so it'll pay for it for the next couple of years.
For sure. I mean, especially if you're running a business and you have, if you're not running a business, it may be harder to swallow spending that type of money if you don't have, where to actually bring in see the revenue that, that's being generated in different areas from that. But like you said, hiring people and having deals. I mean, that's incredible. I just had someone this week also on one of our LinkedIn lives that we're doing right now during the challenge that she said that she did a post, I hadn't posted on LinkedIn in months, and then, did a post about a deal that she just closed. And that day, like a broker called her and reached out to her, said, hey, I saw you just closed on this deal. I have something else maybe you want to look at, which that may turn in, it may not. But again, they're not going to call you if you're not out there. You're not putting yourself out there.
Yeah, one free post she did. It's like
Exactly.
took her, might have took her a half hour to post it, but whatever. There it is.
Yeah, that one post, could end up
Yeah.
meaning, a couple $1 million, literally. And what triggered it for me, I remember this years ago, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, James Kandasamy, who's out of Austin, is a developer, real estate guy out of Austin. He had mentioned he had this Facebook group. He had a podcast years ago in the Facebook group, and he mentioned that he got a deal from someone, an off-market deal in the Facebook group, like a 300-unit apartment deal from someone in the group who was part of this Facebook group that he was running, and said, hey, I know what you're doing. I know you own a lot in this area. I know you're great. I like what you do. I like you as a person. I'm looking to offload this deal. Would you want to take a look at it? And he got this deal without any competition at a great price, and ended up making literally $20 million. He's saying, wow, from one, that's how social media works. Okay. To me, when I heard that story, I knew it worked and I had seen it, but that was next level for me.
That's incredible. Yeah. It's literally just hit post. It's free. It's just your own challenge is you're making your content yourself, but you figure out systems for that. I promise you it'll be worth it. Yeah. It could be a $20 million difference. It's that's incredible.
So amazing.
Yeah.
Marc, have you ventured outside of North Dakota? Not physically, but I mean, in terms of other types of, it's really important to be active in your local market. And obviously you have a presence and you know the area, but have you invested outside, or have you?
Yeah. So we got some partners in the luxury storage, where luxury storage would be like a heated storage bay, larger bays. And with that, we've got some partners in Michigan and South Dakota, maybe Montana even. Haven't done those yet, kind of teeing them up for next spring. But, all areas. I like Vegas and some of the desert markets as well. Mm-hmm. And so I have not, but I'm trying to figure out how to enter that and make it so I can do it, right? You have to have boots on the ground. I'm a big believer in that, even in the asset management space. So I need to keep making content, keep finding good partners in locations where they can be the boots on the ground, source these land if we're going to develop, or if it's a property. I just have to know someone's in the area so we know we can manage the deal right, if we're going to syndicate it or just buy it ourselves or whatever the case is. Yeah. So I have not yet, but my wife is very eager to buy 10 VRBOs in Florida. I'm like, well, I don't know that makes money. And I'm still figuring that space out a little bit. All I see is posts on how much revenue's down on the VRBO style.
Yeah.
So
there's interesting. There actually just this week went pretty viral on Twitter, data that came out from a certain data source, which
I've seen that.
Then got refuted by AirDNA, which is another more reliable data source. There's been a lot of back and forth, but virality is unfortunate that when something goes viral, that's what gets the eyeballs.
Oh, okay.
And therefore, that's how news kind of spreads like that without knowing the real knowledge. But regardless, it's a whole different space.
Yeah.
Understanding short-term or vacation rentals. But it's a great space. It's definitely a great space.
Like I said, I'm in the super boring space. I like boring assets. They make money. It's consistent and they're reliable, So that's kind of where I'm at. So I'm learning more about the VRBO short-term rental, and, we'll see if I dabble.
We'll see about that. Awesome. Yeah. Well, Marc, I want to transition now. What we call the final four. These are 4 questions I ask all my guests. First question is, what's the worst job you ever had?
Oh, I know one winter. So in construction, I couldn't work in the winters with Dad at all because we weren't pouring concrete. So I had a dishwashing job when I was 14, but it was at a Perkins, which is like a bakery breakfast restaurant. And I just remember my first day, they the amount of pans and stuck on stuff, stuck to the ceiling. I had that job for 6 to 8 months. I learned a lot about washing dishes, but man, did I hate that job. I would do anything not to wash dishes every day, all day. It's just the bakery part that got me, and the stuck on eggs and yolks on the plates. I was over it. I was over it. It was a good experience, but definitely the job I hated.
It's a hard job. It is. Dishwashing is hard, regardless of where you're doing that. It is difficult.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I feel for restaurants.
For sure, and everywhere, right? I mean, it's just it's a hard job to have.
Yeah.
Second question, and you already mentioned one, which was amazing, but what's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
Well, I would say that in 2017, when I got curious, like Grant Cardone just got me curious about real estate and thinking bigger and being more of a visionary. I read the 10X rule, which basically just put in perspective. I was thinking too small, and I didn't know there was a bigger world out there. My dad never taught me that. No one would ever teach me that. But, I read the 10X rule. It just caused me to think bigger, which caused me to do real estate development and then raise money for real estate developments. And it actually made my construction company a lot bigger, where I was able to build a leadership team. So I'd say that book kind of converted me into just thinking a lot bigger for myself.
For sure. A big fan of that book. Personally, I'm not such a huge fan of Grant himself, but everyone, you either love the guy or you hate him, but that's kind of, I'm a little in between. I've met him and he's definitely a personality, but the book itself, I think there's no refutation to the lessons. And I mean, just the concept of pushing yourself beyond what your perceivable, limitations and you're just growing. And that book, I read that book probably like 5-6 years ago, and it like right when it came out, and was just a huge mindset shifter for me.
Yeah, that's the same. Yeah, Grant's a special guy himself, but he is intense. And apparently, I needed that kick in the ass. And that's what it caused. So it caused a whole domino effect for me.
Amazing.
So
that's awesome.
That was cool. I love that book.
What's a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
Man, I was thinking about this. Maybe a skill that, so when I scale these companies, like, you start like trying to get other people to leverage other people's skills and trying to pull yourself out to work on a business instead of in a business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a skill of making processes and systems. Like it's a special skill, and I kind of wish I had it, because even hiring VAs today, you have to have very good systems and processes. And if you do, you will be successful. I promise you. But I have to leverage other people's skills in writing them for me. And I know why they're important now, but I really wish I had a great skill with, I don't even know what that skill is. Is it just detail or sitting down and wanting to write processes and systems? Maybe my brain just shuts down. I don't know, but I wish I had that skill.
That's awesome. It definitely is an important skill to have. I don't really have it either, to be honest. And that's something I probably could do very well if I did have it. I do it probably a lot better.
Yeah, it's a random skill set that I wish I had, but that's just one thing I lack, and I know it. And I wish I was a lot better at it.
Okay. Well, finally, fourth question. What does success mean to you?
Success, basically, I think it's getting your time back. The greatest asset in life is our time. And when you can get your time back and you start understanding that I don't want a business to run me and run all my time. I want the business to work for me and my money to work for me. Nothing I was taught in high school, nothing I was taught from my dad, unfortunately, just taught to save all your money and hopefully work long enough to retire one day. And I think success means buying your time back when you really start earning your time back. And not necessarily if you have to work, you're working less, but you should be working less and focusing more time. It's our most precious asset, right underneath health. But I think you start seeing success when you start getting your time back.
Yeah. And that's really what the EOS, kind of system is all about.
Yeah.
That's redundant, right? The EOS is like entrepreneur operating system, right?
It's a system. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? That's what EOS is all about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And that Gino Wickman's good at, you know what I mean? He's a genius in system, but he knows how to get your time back. He knows how to get things, leverage them to other people, delegation, and that whole process of not only leveraging your time with like other people, but like leveraging money to buy properties. Like you just learn how to leverage other things. And by doing that, you'll leverage and get more time yourself. So
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Marc, it's really, truly been a pleasure. I'm glad we were able to do this.
Yeah.
How can our listeners find you or reach out to you?
Wow. I'm on every social media platform, but you'll find me on LinkedIn, probably connecting with Yona as well. It's Marc Kuhn, MarcKuhn. And you can find me on there, where you can also find my newsletter where I deliver like even deals I'm doing, like the nitty gritty stuff. It's called Unfollow the Herd, and you can register for that right on my page on LinkedIn. Follow me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I'm trying to be everywhere all the time. And I have my own podcast on Spotify and YouTube as well. So
very cool.
Yeah, trying to share the Unfollow the Herd adventure with everybody. So they can make their own path.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much, Marc.
Yeah.
Really been a pleasure. I'm grateful for you taking the time today.
I appreciate you, Yona. Thanks, man.
And to all our listeners, thank you guys for listening all the way to the end. Once again, remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.